So this video is, I am an alcoholic. Yeah, and it was dark. It was awful. And it was bad. And when the drugs went away, darkness literally came in. I would black out. And I want people to know and hear this because this isn't some thing to me. This is a thing that's closest to my heart. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. Today's video is about a question that I got this week. Are you really an alcoholic? And someone asked me to tell a story. So I'm going to tell a story of how I got sober, my redemption story, my hero's journey with alcohol, and how that can help you if you're struggling with alcohol or anything. Alcohol, drugs, sex, food, all of the addictions that are out there. There's so many. So this is my story. And I'm going to tell the ugly stuff today, the real ugly stuff. So that because it happens sometimes. People say, are you really an alcoholic? And, oh, you're not an alcoholic anymore. You've been sober for 23 years. So 23 years in September. And I was really, sometimes I get frustrated when they say this. And sometimes I get annoyed. And sometimes some people will say well, if you're an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic. So I don't think I'm an alcoholic. So you're not an alcoholic. And this video is for people that are struggling. All right. And this is the ugly stuff. This is what really happened. So I don't want to talk about all the war stories and hero stories where I slept under cars and people think it's hilarious. And I woke up in the wrong part of this famous city and stuff. And because all the stories essentially, after going to the rooms for so many years, it's I slept in a funny place. I did something silly with money. I did this thing out of the enormous society. So, whatever. I'm not really into telling those stories anymore because it promotes the culture and I don't want to do that. There's enough promotion of alcohol and drug abuse that I don't need to help with that. So, my story starts as a kid, actually. I just grew up in a house where people rocked. They partied. My family partied. My father's family. We went to family events. There was parties. I'll tell people now, I don't really go around alcohol except for weddings and funerals. And people are like, funerals? I'm like, you don't get drunk at funerals? My family get drunk at funerals, wasted actually. And weddings, of course, Christmas, all of the big holidays. And we used to have something where I grew up called Sam Slick Days. And that was a rocker. And they'd be, growing up as a kid, there'd be 30, 40, 50 people in my house at 2, 3, 4 in the morning partying. And I just thought it was normal. And I loved it. And my father's the funniest, coolest guy ever. I've never partied with someone funner than my father who makes the night better. He's amazing. And I probably, try to emulate that when I started partying. So that's how I grew up. And that's what I knew. And then I started drinking when I was 15. November 7th, I'll never forget it, of course. I drank, my brother and I, my older brother, he was in grade 12, I was in grade 10, and we threw a party. And it was so fun. There was all these people over, and it was the first time I was ever drunk, and, felt like a superhero. Obviously, that faded away in the next 11 years of my drinking career. And then the next morning, we cleaned up the whole house. We were so proud. Our mom called and told us she loved us. And then she didn't know we had a party, but she just told us, that she loved us. And then a couple hours later, she died in a car accident. And that's the day that shapes myself, my brother's lives, and everything kind of stems off of that day from me and my life. And then I started drinking. I started drinking a lot, and and it was normal. And I got a title of a good drinker, whatever the heck that means. And then we used to have parties in high school, and people used to come to them, and it was, I had 2 friends that my father or my cousins would watch over because my dad knew I was a lunatic. We'd make little maps of the house, and Dad said it was so funny on Sunday or Monday when he'd come home because he'd like to see where we put things back and how clean the house was. And luckily I have really good friends and cousins that were able to support all of that. But yeah, they were great parties, and then went to university, same thing. I became a beer rep, entertainment director, same story. And then went down to the States after university and taught at a summer camp. And then that was people from all over the world. And then that drinking culture was super excessive. And then I started realizing in my second year that I had a problem with alcohol. was when I was organizing events as an entertainment director, I used to argue with the administration, like, we can't have an event without alcohol. What's the point? And I hurt my back in my 5th year. I don't have any back pain anymore after 13 years of dealing with that from 2000 to 2013. So Healing Back Pain by Dr. Serrano, I couldn't recommend it enough. I read it the first time, I threw it against the wall, read it the second time, I stopped having back pain. It's an incredible book. Recommend it to everybody. If it will help you or not, I don't know, but it helped me change my life. So I have back pain, pretty bad. I've got whatever, $15, $20, $25,000 worth of like whatever, physio and chiro and all that stuff. And then I go to get back surgery, and the doctor did not have the best bedside manner. And he told me I couldn't drink for 6 months after the surgery. And I just was like, oh, okay. And I left the office. Like, I didn't even think about getting back surgery, because I was like, how do you not drink for 6 months? And then along this time, I met Sri. I meditated with him in January 19th, 2002. So this was all happening around the same time. So my second year, I kind of realized it about 97, 98, I had not a bit of a problem. I had a massive problem with alcohol. I remember crying, saying, I'm only good at drinking. And it's so sad. But that was my reality, but I couldn't stop. And then I started introducing drugs and mainly speed to stay awake so I wouldn't black out, and marijuana to calm me down. And then that continued. That was the pattern. So it was just always like taking something so I wouldn't black out, and pod to calm me down. It was just like, that's what I did. And then when I started meditating, I couldn't really do drugs anymore. And therefore I would black out. And I knew that. Like, we'd have 2 drinks and I would be completely blacked out, like for the next 3 to 5 to 6 hours. A really good friend grew up in Grand Lake, West New Brunswick, and I'd always be like, the next day I'd be like, hey man, like, what happened? And it was like, how is this happening? So the 2002 at Christmas, I stopped doing drugs, and then 2003 was the last year I ever drank. And there are 3 times I drank in 2003, and they were all bad, progressively worse. So the last February, I drank with my roommates, who I was roommates with for 7 years. They're still my best friends from university. I'm so blessed to have such great friends to grow up with. University, I'm just so lucky. And the art of living, I made such great friends. And so I'm out with these guys, and whatever, the stereotypical birthday stuff. You go downtown, blah, 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 blah. We've all done this. And we're coming home, and he was peeing by this big glass window at a convenience store, like 8 feet by 4 feet. And he was sitting, and I was like, oh, it'd be so funny if I grabbed him by the back of the pants and spun him around. He'd pee all over himself. That's what I thought. So I did that, and then I let him go. But he didn't end up in the snowbank like I'd hoped. He ended up going through the plate glass window. I'm like, what? Like, it was awful. Instantly sober. What the heck is going on? We go to the ER. He still has a scar on his arm to the day from this little lightning bolt, like a Harry Potter scar, but it's on his arm. And he's still friends with me, thank God. Anyways, we go to the emergency room, and there's this one really good family friends that we're really good family friends with, and we met them all in university, and they're just wonderful people. The last night I drank, I was with 2 of the brothers, and then this night the daughter, who was a doctor, her best friend was in the ER, and she said, are you Mark Fry? And I'm like, yeah. She's like I'm so and so's best friend. And she's like, you did this to him? And it's now like 7 or 8 in the morning. Like, yeah. She goes, I think you're an alcoholic. I think you need to go to AA. And I was like, so offended. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then of course that night ended. We go home, we joke around about it a bit. Then I'm like completely terrified to drink again. And it's like, I didn't really go to my room much. I had to go to work and stuff. Besides that, not much anything. So basically March, I'm like kind of depressed because of this, what happened. And I'm like, I'm not doing drugs, and I don't know really what to do. And it's when I'm starting to meditate, which is also a whole new set of feelings that I was like, dealing with, and like didn't really want to eat meat anymore, and like no more drugs, but booze. And I was like, so still eating meat, but I still didn't really feel right in my body. And the booze was like, I was just scared to drink. So didn't drink in April, didn't drink in May, didn't drink in June, didn't drink in July. And then in August was the last time I ever drank, 2 times. And so I went to a friend's wedding beginning of August in 2003, and drank. I remember running around drinking all the wine, like how lucky I was to like drink all this wine off the tables, how cool I was. Like, oh my God. So went back to the hotel that night, and I pushed my friend's wife in the pool in her dress. And luckily, he didn't beat me up. He probably should have. It's just idiotic. And I was just, as soon as I did it, I was like, oh my God, like what's wrong with you? And then I went to this a room with one of my best friends in the world. He lived down in the States now. He's like the most amazing guy, and his dad. And I just started screaming at them. I think I went to fight them, and I was like just freaking out. It's just completely embarrassing. So I was like, oh my God, like I really have a problem. But I still couldn't stop. So then 3 weeks later, I went to a wedding at the end of August. And I was just nervous. It was such a fancy wedding, university friends. I started out at these two brothers' houses. Their dad's a doc, and their mom's like the sweetest lady ever. And they have a beautiful house in the South End. And they're cool, super cool guys. And we're drinking. I don't know what the hell we were drinking. Something, whatever people in the South End drink, not beer. And yeah, I remember I was wearing Birkenstocks and a suit. I just felt out of place and felt inadequate. And then I went to the wedding, and it was open bar, and I just got wasted. But I wasn't doing drugs, so I got blacked out right away. And then I was clapping at the wrong times at the reception, and then I started throwing furniture into the ocean, and it was embarrassing. And one of the family members came up and like, Mark, like, what are you doing? And this guy's father and my father have been friends since like they were 20, so like since 1968, I think. 69 or 1970. Anyways, he's like, what are you doing? You're embarrassing yourself, embarrassing your family, you're embarrassing us. I was like, oh my God. And I was instantly sober and left. I just left the wedding. And I ended up going to Quimple Road, and my brother was there with his girlfriend at the time, who became his wife. And I was with them, and I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to drink again. They were at a pizza place, and people say that all the time, but I was dead serious. I think 2 or 3, I don't know what time it was. I have no idea. But anyways, I told them I think I'm never going to drink again. The next morning I wake up, and my really good friend of mine, who's a good friend of the family, she called. She's like, you don't come to any events today. Like, you were uninvited from the events. And I'm like, amazing. Here we are. So then I went home to Windsor, where I grew up. I just felt awful. And it was a Wednesday, and I was at my dad's house, my dad and my stepmom's house in Hansport. And I was drinking a beer, and I looked up to the sky, and I poured the beer down the sink. And I looked up and said, God, I'll never drink again. I promise. Ever, 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 ever. I promise never. I said, but you have to walk with me like footprints. You got to walk with me the whole time. And you got to walk me through this, because I don't know how to live without alcohol. And I'm terrified. I'm so scared. And I said, if I have one sip, let me die. But I promise, I remember I said this when I was praying. I was like, I promise if there's a gun to my head, and the only way I can live is if I drink alcohol, I'll choose to die. Because at that point, the depression and it was awful. I was losing friends. I was like, my stomach is turning now thinking about it. And I also between the drinking in February and August, I started looking to do, I was trying to find heroin to do. It was just not a great time in my life, obviously. So I'm sitting there, I'm praying and praying and praying. Like, please help me, please help me, please help me. I need help. I need help. Like, something's wrong with me. I don't know how else to live. I've been drinking since I was 15, since the day before Mom died, and now I'm 26. I don't know what else to do. Everyone else is going on with their fancy careers, and doctors and lawyers and masters and all these things and plans. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. I had to get a new identity. I didn't know who I was. I thought I'd lose all my friends. I thought no one would ever talk to me. I was like, they only like me because of alcohol and the parties that I throw. And anyways, so then I went over to my auntie's house, who was like best friends with my mom and my dad's sister. So we've been super close since, forever, really. And I went to her house, and she said, look, God has blessed you to meet this man from South India who's an enlightened master named Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, who you can follow and learn to live the most beautiful life. Like, what a gift from God that you were able to meet him. Or you can be like the drunks that are in our family, and you know how their lives end up. It's your choice. You pick and get out of my house. And like, that was my safe place. And she threw me out of the house. And I was like, oh my God, this is bad. This is bad, bad. So then I went up to Halifax and started looking for meetings and called the AA hotline. And thank God, whoever answered that phone that day and all the volunteers at AA is so much appreciated. So then Saturday I found a meeting in the evening, and then I went out. My friend, like same girlfriend that told me I was uninvited from the events on Sunday from the wedding, called me, and she was like, hey, I need to talk to you about something. I'm like, I know. I'm going to a meeting tonight. And she's like, oh, thank God. And the relief in her voice was like, thank God. So I went to a meeting that day, and then you're supposed to do 90 meetings in 90 days. And I started doing it. And I just thought that people were like losers, and I just like, there's such a bunch of weirdo losers. And then my aunt, the same one that told me to pick between the beautiful spiritual path I had found or the path of the drunk, she told me about this meeting in the South End of Halifax. For people that don't live in Halifax, the South End's where all like the fancy rich people live. And so I went down there. There's lawyers, doctors, judges, whatever, down at that meeting. Like, alcohol gets everybody, right? Alcoholism gets everybody. So I like, okay, all right. And then the beginning of 2004, I went over to India, and I went to live at the Art of Living ashram just to see what it was like, and I loved it. And then I went to Goa on a trip, and I saw a guy sleeping in the middle of the road, passed out. Not sleeping, he's passed out from drinking. And I looked at him and I said, I'll never do that again. I know I'll never do that again. And I've been blessed to never do it again. But then there comes in the work, because I was physically sober, and I was very close, and I am very close to a spiritual master who I believe is enlightened, and he spread so much love over the world. But just because you're close to a spiritual master doesn't mean you're without fault, doesn't make you enlightened. And that's the mistake that I had made. And I'm a very good person 95% of the time, but that 5% could be dark, and I hadn't dealt with a lot of the stuff that I needed to work on. So yeah, I was sober and I'm decent looking. So I was able to have relationships, but they would always falter and fail. And as I wasn't emotionally sober, I thought I was, and I thought I was spiritually enlightened, which I wasn't. And then in 2019, my marriage wasn't going well, and I did the steps, and I didn't have a job, I didn't have any money. And it's like, this guy was like, look, man, like, look at your resume. So I did the steps, and that's when I finally felt sober, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I stopped blaming everybody. And I was listening to two guys talk the other day, Dan Martell and Lewis Howes. It was an amazing talk. And Dan Martell was like, yeah, it's amazing to be in victim consciousness. It's awesome to blame other people always. It's awesome. You're just on a beach. It's like you're taking candy on a beach. It's amazing. No, it's their fault. It's their fault. And I have been doing the same thing, blaming anyone. Like, first off, for my God, for my mom dying, or my mom for dying, or my dad for not being perfect when his wife died, and me not having enough money, and never, whatever. It's anything. Never. There was never enough of anything. Never enough of anything. Never enough of anything. And I was always blaming and pointing fingers. And then when I did this, I did these 12 steps, those little steps that change your life. I stopped blaming, and I accepted responsibility for myself and my side of the street, my emotions. There's nothing wrong with emotions, but when I take them and chuck them at people or think they're going to fix me, it's sad. It's a sad way to live. And I'm just so happy that I don't do that anymore. And I have emotions, and I get upset. Of course I do, but I'm not drunk anymore. And I'm not a dry drunk anymore, which is, that's, the dry drunk thing sucks, because basically it's just, you just have moved the alcohol out of your system, but you're not done with any of the reasons why you were drinking. Still yelling. In my case, other people have different behavior patterns. So this video is, yeah, I am an alcoholic. Yeah, and it was dark. It was awful. And it was bad. And when the drugs went away, darkness literally came in. I would black out. And I want people to know and hear this, because this isn't some thing to me. This is the thing that's closest to my heart. My mom died, and I didn't know what the to do. And I drank, and then that was a lie. And I didn't know what else to do. And by the grace of God, I was able to meet an enlightened master who's helped me live a beautiful life of sobriety. However, The proximity to him does not make me exempt from human condition and emotions, which I thought it did. Made me better than everybody else, which it didn't. And I had to do the work. And then luckily in 2019, at the age of 42, I got to learn this. And that's what I'm sharing with everybody now. So this is for people that are struggling to get sober, and for struggling to know it sucks, it's dark, it's and you're told it's awesome, and it's not. And for some people it is, and for addicts it isn't. And I have so many close friends that end up drinking by themselves, passing out at their family cottages, drinking on the way to events, flying to other countries to drink, going to an event and waking up 5 days later with no memory and just bottles around them. And just, this is what we're trying to avoid, and I just want people to know that they're not alone. And I want them to know that I am really an alcoholic. And yes, it was a terrible, dark place. And I did the work, and it is not as fun as being in victim consciousness, but now I don't blame anymore. And now I have such a better relationship with myself. And like I say to everybody, the gift I've gotten from this, besides not blaming, is the relationship with my dad, my little brother. My little brother calls me all the time. We just have chit chats. And before it was always like, you should be this way. You should be this way. Now I don't give but anybody's like, especially him. And my dad, just love them the way they are. And myself, with all of my problems. I was praying about this morning, and like, if I could just be grateful for everything. If I could, I don't understand anything. I don't know how the cosmos works. I don't understand how anything, cameras, lights, nothing. I just am doing my best to understand myself internally, my thoughts, my feelings, my speech, my action, and try to put love into the world. So for people that are watching the video, maybe this far, I hope you get some benefit, especially if you're struggling with your sobriety. Do the steps, face your demons, get sober, physically, emotionally, spiritually. You can do it. Send me a note. I'll help anybody I can. I'm just so happy that I get to share this, and I really love doing this. And thank you to everybody. So I was asked to share a story today, and asked, are you really an alcoholic? Yes, I am. And this is my story of how I realized I was an alcoholic, how I got sober, and how I hope you can get sober. So have a great one. Thanks for listening. All right. Bye-bye, guys.